I grew up in a house that looked normal from the outside, the kind of house neighbors would point at and say, "They are such a nice family," but inside those walls, silence screamed louder than arguments ever could. My father was always present but never emotionally available, like a shadow that moved with us but never touched us. And my mother carried the entire emotional weight of the family on her. Tired shoulders without ever complaining out loud. Dinner conversations were short, mechanical, and careful, as if one wrong sentence could break something fragile that had already been cracked for years. I learned very early that emotions were dangerous things in our home, that crying meant weakness, that anger meant disrespect, and that asking for understanding meant you were asking for too much. As a child, I didn't understand why love felt conditional, why affection came only when achievements were presented like proof of worth, or why my parents seemed more like managers, evaluating performance than people raising a human being. I remember lying in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, listening to the muffled sounds of my parents talking behind closed doors, never arguing loudly, never resolving anything either, just existing in a permanent state of emotional distance that slowly taught me that this was what family looked like. I became quiet, observant, and emotionally guarded, learning how to survive by shrinking myself, by becoming invisible, because being noticed in my house often meant being criticized or compared. Even as a kid, I felt older than my age, burdened by unspoken expectations and an invisible responsibility to not make things worse, to not add to the tension that already lived in every corner of our home. As I grew older, the cracks became clearer, and the family issues that once felt confusing started to feel heavy and personal. My father believed love was expressed through control, through strict rules and constant judgment, while my mother believed love meant sacrifice to the point of self-erasure, and I was stuck somewhere in between, trying to understand what love was supposed to feel like. Every mistake I made felt magnified, every failure treated like a character flaw rather than a learning moment, and slowly I started believing that maybe I really wasn't enough. My siblings coped in their own ways, one becoming aggressive and defensive, another emotionally detached, and me, I became the emotional sponge, absorbing everyone's pain without ever releasing my own. Family gatherings felt like performances where everyone played their assigned role, pretending everything was fine while resentment sat quietly between us, uninvited but permanent. I wanted to talk, to scream, to ask why things were the way they were, but every attempt at honesty was met with denial or guilt, tripping, making me feel selfish for wanting emotional clarity. I learned to suppress my feelings, to smile through discomfort, to apologize even when I wasn't wrong, because keeping peace mattered more than being understood. Inside, though, something was breaking, piece by piece, and I didn't have the language or the courage to explain it to anyone, not even myself. The real damage didn't show itself until I stepped into the outside world and realized how deeply my family issues had shaped me. I struggled with relationships, constantly afraid of abandonment yet terrified of closeness, craving validation while pushing people away the moment they got too close. I apologized too much, doubted myself constantly, and felt guilty for having needs because growing up, my needs were always considered inconvenient. When people showed me kindness, I questioned their intentions, waiting for the moment it would be taken away, because that was what love had taught me to expect. Every phone call from home triggered anxiety. Every visit reopened old wounds, and yet I still felt obligated to stay connected. Because family, I was told, was everything, even if it hurt. I carried anger toward my parents that I didn't know how to express, mixed with guilt for feeling that anger at all. Because they had provided for me materially, and apparently that was supposed to be enough. Therapy taught me words like emotional neglect, generational trauma, and unresolved pain. And for the first time, my experiences made sense. But understanding didn't erase the sadness of realizing that my childhood had been emotionally lonely. I mourned the parents I wished I had, the conversations that never happened, and the version of myself that never got the chance to grow in a safe emotional environment. Healing, I learned, was not about blaming my parents or cutting them off completely, but about accepting the reality of who they were and who they weren't capable of being. My father was raised by a man who believed emotions were weaknesses, and my mother was taught that love meant endurance, not expression, and neither of them ever learned how to break those patterns. That understanding softened some of my anger, but it didn't erase the pain, and I had to learn that both could coexist. I began setting boundaries, small ones at first, choosing not to engage in conversations that turned toxic, choosing silence when self-respect demanded it, and choosing honesty with myself even when it felt uncomfortable. Family gatherings still felt heavy, but I stopped expecting them to suddenly become something they had never been. And that shift changed everything. I stopped chasing emotional validation from people who didn't know how to give it and started giving myself the compassion I had been waiting for my entire life. Slowly, I learned that it was okay to grieve the family I didn't get while still appreciating the lessons that came from surviving it. Today, my relationship with my family is complicated but clearer, no longer driven by blind obligation or silent resentment, but by conscious choice. I love them, but I no longer sacrifice my mental health to maintain the illusion of harmony, and that has been the hardest and most freeing lesson of all. I am learning to build the family I always needed through friendships, honesty, and emotional safety, redefining what home means to me on my own terms. Sometimes the pain resurfaces, triggered by a memory, a smell, or a simple question about childhood, and when it does, I allow myself to feel it instead of burying it like I was taught. I am not healed completely, and maybe I never will be, but I am aware, and that awareness has given me power. My story is not about perfect forgiveness or dramatic confrontations, but about quiet growth, about choosing myself without completely abandoning where I came from. And if there is one thing I've learned through all of this, It's that surviving a broken family doesn't make you broken. It makes you someone who understands the value of emotional honesty, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts.